and action. So, all right, we're rolling, but I will edit the first part. But okay. So, when I finally looked you up, and you run a very tight fortress, I could not find direct contact information. Right?
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean,
I should probably change that.
No, it's not. No, I think I can understand, because I wonder if you did just have a big glaring email address on your front page, how many emails would you get a day?
I used to have that, and I used to get a lot. And now I try to direct everyone to that Ask Jody call.
Which is perfect. But, I mean, I get that. So, I think when I found you and I did the horrible, I stalked you in a very loving, friendly way, right? And so then I found your Facebook information, and it said that you were in Roseville, which is, that's where I'm at right now. So I was like, holy cow, like Jody can come on in and we can do the podcast. But you're no longer in Roseville.
I'm not there. I was there just a couple of years ago, though.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Rockland, and now we're in Washington State. So I just haven't updated my Facebook profile, I guess.
Yeah, that's okay. You're a busy person, which is a good thing. How long were you in this area?
We were in that area for about 5 years.
Okay.
And we loved it there. We were in Southern Cal before that, and then Washington's where I grew up. So my husband got a job offer up here, and I have lots of family here. So it was kind of a dream come true for us to move up here. So we love California. We miss it, but especially right now where it's 30 degrees outside here.
Oh, yeah. If I turned the webcam around, you'd be a little jealous right now.
Yes, I would.
Yeah. I did bring a jacket in today, though, just in case.
Nice. Just in case. A jacket, right? Like a little sweatshirt.
A very lightweight, jacket. Hey, anything you miss in particular about this area of Northern California?
I miss all the good restaurants.
That's where I was going. Yeah. What were your go-to? Because, I mean, a huge part of my audience.
And when I say good...
Yeah.
This will teach you a lot about my family and I. We miss Chick-fil-A.
Oh,
we miss
Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. I mean, the chain restaurants, but they were like, we had our favorite places, and we all had a dessert we loved at CPK. So that was like our go-to night out. And Spokane has actually a lot of local restaurants, which are probably amazing. We just haven't gotten out and figured out which ones we like. So
sure. Very quick question.
And the people, of course, we miss the people.
Of course, yeah. But Chick-fil-A, are you a nugget or a chicken sandwich?
This is what you have to get at Chick-fil-A: the grilled nuggets with the Chick-fil-A sauce.
Yes,
and then the kale salad, which doesn't sound good, is delicious there.
All right, you lost me on the kale salad, but the Chick-fil-A sauce I'm in. We can continue at least with that. That's okay. Now, let me ask you too, were you doing the coaching while you were here in Roseville?
Yeah, I did. I started it actually while I was there. So I've been coaching for almost 4 years now. And so
I want to get into how that started.
Okay.
But can I tell a very quick, vulnerable, embarrassing anecdote about?
Please do. Yes.
So the way that I found out about you was as my podcast is kind of, as I've kind of got more episodes out there, I have had several people tell me, "Hey, have you heard of Bold New Mom?" And so then I was like, "Oh, I'll have to check this out." Maybe I can have her on, help her out a little bit. And I go to your iTunes, and it's like 8,000, 5-star reviews, and everybody just loving in your coaching practices. You're so busy that maybe not necessarily taking on the one-on-one clients. And then I was like, wow, maybe she'll have. Maybe she'll take the time to field my email. So,
oh my gosh, that's so nice of you. I seriously am so honored that you'd have me on, because I do get a lot of like, well, you're just a fake therapist. People tell me, and I'm like, well, I'm not claiming to be a therapist, but I'm counseling people, right? So I get where that comes from, so it says a lot about you that you're, willing to even check out what I do. Not all therapists feel that way, is just what I'll say.
No, what's funny is I can understand, because there is a lot of therapists get on their high horse about, when someone tells them that they've worked with a life coach and a therapist gets their dander up. But, I kind of am of that opinion where, as long as we're all helping, and I've listened to your podcast episodes, and I mean, you give amazing advice. You really do.
Oh, thank you.
Just saying that because you're here. And I think we were talking a little before, but I've actually started sending some folks your way, and I've had some good feedback. So I appreciate the work that you're doing.
So awesome. Thank you.
So tell me though, I didn't realize, so 4 years ago, how did this all start? Maybe can you do a little bit of a,
sure.
Who is Jody? Where does she come from?
Gosh.
You already know her Chick-fil-A menu. So
other than Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
So I worked in a corporate setting for a long time. I worked for the same company about 14 years. And at the end of my time there, I was doing leadership coaching.
Okay.
I was a corporate trainer and a leadership coach. And so I was introduced to some coaching tools because my director there was a certified life coach. So she taught me the basic model I use now. And anyway, I just got a little taste of coaching in that corporate setting, and I loved it. I was like, it was different than any other kind of corporate training I had ever offered.
How so? Because I did 10 years in software before I became a therapist. And I remember doing you're always going to these trainings, some cheesy, some not, whatever. So
right.
What do you remember from that? What were some things?
So I remember before I started coaching and before I met this woman, Chris Plackey, who still does amazing leadership coaching, the way that you would help a manager, let's say, who is struggling would be to say, okay, so your employee's not performing. So what have you done? Did you write them up? Did you get them more training? Right. And it was just really direct, basic, like, this is what you need to do, basically.
Okay.
And then I watched Chris Plackey one time coach a manager who had an employee that wasn't performing well. And she didn't talk about the employee at all. She talked about the manager, about what was going on in his mind.
Okay.
And ultimately, she showed him that his belief when this employee doesn't do what he told her to do is that she doesn't respect him.
Okay.
And then when you have an employee that you think doesn't respect you, then how does that impact your action? And ultimately for him, he avoids her.
Sure. Okay.
Which doesn't help her get any better at her job.
Yeah.
And I could see this manager and like his mind was kind of blown, like, what? And so I was like, that is so much more powerful, right? Mm-hmm. Than just like do this, do that. Some of that's necessary. But anyway, so it was not what people were expecting in a corporate environment at all. It wasn't what they thought you were coming in to help them with, but it was so much more effective and helps people not just in their job, but in their lives.
Sure.
So I just totally fell in love with it.
Did you get resistance from some of the old guard? I mean, as far as this isn't productive, we need to tell people, here's what you do?
Not really, no, because the results speak for themselves. Yeah. So when the performance starts going up, they were like, great, keep doing what you're doing. We didn't get a lot of resistance. People really mostly were open to it.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was fun. Yeah.
And I hate to put you on the spot, but any kind of nice, fun stories from corporate training days of things that didn't go right or went south?
Oh my gosh. So many. Where do I begin? I loved corporate training, actually, even putting on the events, like we would do kind of day-long events where we'd pull people out of their cubicles and into a room. And I was lucky to get to have a team of trainers. I had about 6 or 7 trainers that worked underneath me that were all amazing. And so we would send out surveys at the end of the day to ask for feedback on how the day went. And the number one complaint, I should say, was always whatever we served for lunch.
Oh, wow.
So if we served pizza, they're like, why can't we have a nicer lunch? If we catered lunch, they're like, why can't we have pizza? I mean, it was like, we don't like thin crust pizza. We want thick crust pizza. So that was kind of our running joke, was like, we can never nail lunch.
You can get everything else right.
But if that's our biggest complaint, I think we're doing pretty well.
Sure. Yeah,
so exactly. It was fun.
I wonder if that speaks to the deep psychological need for people to want to complain, right? There's something
there has to be something.
Has to be something. It can't be all perfect, right? So all right. So you do the corporate training, and that goes well. At what point did you start to look at, I can help individuals?
Well, the company that I worked for laid off 80% of us.
Wow.
It was a huge company, and they just made huge changes. And so at that point, I was pregnant with my 3rd child. My husband was making good money at the time, so we kind of stopped and assessed, and it was like, I don't need to work, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, maybe I'm just going to be home for a little while. And shortly after that, Brooke Castillo, who owns the Life Coach School, who at that point lived in Folsom, near you there, right near Roseville, where I was at the time, decided to offer for the first time an in-person coach training. She'd been training coaches virtually for a while, but she was like, I want to train people in person. And I was like, I live right by her. Yeah. I have to go to this. And I told my husband, I was like, I have no idea if I'm going to do anything with this ever.
Yeah.
I'm not really an entrepreneur by nature, but I really feel called to go to this class that she's teaching. And it was pretty expensive. And my husband is great and was like, all right, if you feel like you need to do it, we'll make it happen. And so I went through, and by the time I got through that class and just learned all the tools in so much more depth, and learned a little bit about how to market a business, a coaching practice. And I just came out of there like, okay, now I'm going to do this. But again, it was never like, I'm going to have this big podcast. I'm going to have all these clients. I was just like, I'm just going to help some people. I think I know how to find some people to help.
Okay.
I just really took one step at a time. And with a lot of hard work. I don't mean like it was so easy. I just fell into this. It was definitely hard work.
Sure.
But really, I just kept telling myself, all I have to do is keep marching forward. Just keep marching forward. I don't know how I'm going to get to, I don't even know what the end goal is. Just keep marching forward. Just keep marching forward. And with failure along the way too, like, that's fine. I failed. Now march forward.
I love that. So I find, and probably a cheesy phrase, but I love to, when a client is starting to, I say, pull out their crystal ball, right? So they're saying, well, I probably can't even get in. And, there's traffic at that time of a day and that class is probably pretty expensive. And my husband would probably say that that's not a smart idea. So yeah, I really guess that's not going to work. Right.
Right.
And I mean, so you were basically, you threw the crystal ball away and it's just one step at a time.
Totally. I was like, I don't know. You're right. I don't know how I'm going to overcome that. I don't know what I'm going to do about traffic.
But
I know what the next step is. That's all I need to know. Here's the next step. I'm going to take that one. Then I'm going to see.
Okay.
I mean, this is so fascinating too. If you think about, like, we want to know, our brains like to know, right? We don't like uncertainty. We want to be able to predict, even if we know it's going to be hard. If we just know what the hard will be and when it will resolve itself, that feels so much safer to us. But what I teach my clients is that you can't possibly know, because the way doesn't unfold itself until you get a little closer. Like, you and I had no idea that Zoom existed, which is how we're talking virtually right now. But 2 years ago, I didn't know it existed, right? And so I couldn't have predicted, well, the way I'll talk to Tony will be through Zoom.
Right, exactly.
So, you just have to be willing to, all you need to know is the next step.
Yeah. Can I tell you that, and I want this is not about me, but, I got to this point where I said, okay, I'm going to go back and get my master's in counseling, and I'll just get it, because I had waited for years where I thought maybe I should. And then I finally just said, I'll get it, and maybe I'll never do anything with it, but I need to at least start. Right. And then once I got there, and then you get into a practicum and you see clients, and then, you and I are now talking through Zoom. So,
and you're just like, oh, okay, that's how.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I love what you're saying though, where then, people will maybe say you've got a successful coaching practice and it's kind of pretty easy for you. Right. And it's like, no, I took all these steps and risks and changes and
Yes, for sure.
So when you got the certification, what's the next step? I mean, do you kind of just, open got a shingle and it's like coaching?
I started with a blog.
Okay.
I started writing a blog. I wasn't trying to be a blogger. I was just trying to get content out there to teach people kind of what I know and to find people that might be interested in getting some coaching.
Okay.
So I wrote a blog for the first couple of years. I just told myself, this is again what I had learned about building a business, was that you need to be really consistent with your content. So I published a blog post every week without fail, even though I didn't always want to write it and they weren't all great, but I was just very consistent about publishing them and sharing them on Facebook. And so, I started to get some people saying, I really like what I'm reading in your blog. I did some free coaching in the beginning. I just created basically a 6-week program. I was like, okay, I want to help women. My passion is helping moms who are stay-at-home moms who are overwhelmed and unfulfilled, but they don't necessarily want to go to work, but they just want to be happy again. So I was like, these are the 6 sessions I would teach. This is how I would coach them. I created that program, and then I reached out and I coached some people for free through it so I could just test it out and practice my coaching.
Yeah.
And from there, I was like, this is so good. Now I start charging for it.
Right. So, and I think a lot of people assume that, they aren't, I don't want to say I'm throwing judgmental statements out, but that people go to this place where, well, I got to start making money, or this isn't worth it, or I've been doing this for 2 months and I'm not making any money. And I feel like, I've been speaking at things for 20 years, youth conferences and churches and enrichment nights and whatever.
Right.
But eventually it all kind of comes together.
I like to think of money as like, you're putting value out into the world and you're going to get value back in some way at some point, but it's not always going to be this linear, like I worked this many hours and now I get paid, or to your point, I'll go speak at a church event anytime. I'm not going to get paid for that. Right.
Yeah.
But I know that's value I'm putting into the world, and it comes back to me in ways I never would have expected. I didn't start making money in my business until I made the first year I made no money. I basically broke even or spent money.
Yeah.
The second year I made a little bit of money. It was like a jobby.
Okay.
Right? Like a job hobby. Where, I mean, I was serious about it. It wasn't that in my mind, but like financially, you'd have been like, that's cute, made a little money, right? It wasn't until my third year that I really took off, and my husband and I were like, my husband's like, whoa, you just passed up my income. Whoa, you just doubled my income.
Wow.
Whoa, I think I should quit my job and work in your business.
Right.
So that happened in my third year, but I honestly think those first 2 years, I put so much value out into the world. My goal was like to help people and serve people. And I was strategic, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
I had like a map of like what I was building along the way,
Uh-huh.
but I was all for like, even now, like when I go to sell something, right, I offer content to people for free. And the way I think about it is, okay, if I'm going to do, let's say it's going to be a webinar, I'm going to teach something, I'm going to sell a program at the end. I think about that webinar like that person who's going to come to this webinar and is not going to buy anything from me. This is the one chance I have to try to help them with this topic. What's the best thing I could teach them in this 45 minutes?
Okay.
And I create the webinar that way. And then at the end, I tell them why I think that if they're able to and they want to, this program will help them so much, and it costs money. But I'm putting so much value in that I honestly feel like it's just all catching up now in ways that I never had planned on.
Yeah. Do you remember, those first few, the clients you worked with? Do you remember those?
Oh yeah.
What was that like? Do you remember your first one?
Oh my gosh. I was like, my first paying client, I remember thinking, this person should not be giving me money. I don't know what they're thinking. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I really like, it's so hard. You want to be confident.
Yeah.
You don't have anything to pull your confidence from, anything from your past. But what I did is I put my confidence in the tools. I knew that I had really amazing tools that I'd been taught. Mm-hmm. So I told myself, these tools alone, I paid way more than this for these tools, right?
Yeah.
So these tools alone are valuable. And then this was really key, and I still have to do this. I had to remind myself, oh, this isn't about me.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay.
Right? Like, let me just show up and quiet all that drama in my own head about what are they going to think of me and am I good enough? And let me just be present for them. Let me bring my tools. Let me engage with them. Tell my own brain to just be quiet. And that's really...
And I apologize if you've already covered this topic. I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago on imposter syndrome. I mean, are you pretty familiar with that?
No.
Oh, okay.
Tell me about that.
I highly recommend listening to that one, because that one is one of these where I've got a lot of feedback where people said, wow, I didn't realize I've got somebody who I've been trying to get to come on, and they were like, hey, I just listened to your episode on imposter syndrome, and that's why I'm not coming on, because the imposter, right? Yeah. So imposter, and I have it all the time still, where imposter syndrome is, I feel passionate about this, and I feel, this isn't about me. I want to share guests like you, and I want to share the tools I've learned from a decade on the couch, and I want to help. I really do. Mm-hmm. And then in my, every now and again, I worry that somebody's going to knock on the door here, and they're going to say, hey, we realize like all the stuff you're saying is actually kind of dumb, and you're really not kind of helping many people. So when you close the laptop of your computer and you're
that's enough. Can you stop now?
Yeah. Do you ever have that? I mean, do you ever have that thought or those feelings?
Oh, because my confidence is in the tools.
Yeah.
I just feel like I know for sure those tools are so powerful. And so even me and all my shortcomings, I do get people that make comments like that. Like, obviously no one can come in and shut my laptop, but I get people posting or commenting or emailing me about their opinions that I don't know what I'm talking about, or that I'm doing I'm harming people in this way. I get all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And it's not that it doesn't affect me. Like, it doesn't feel good. I mostly try not to read them, but overall I do my own work. Yeah. On what do I believe, right? And I know that everybody, like, it's okay. I'm not for everyone, right? Everyone doesn't have to like me. I just need to like me, and all of that. I really do my own work to not live in fear of that. If I don't, here's what happens when I don't, because I've caught myself at times like thinking about that one negative comment that came in, or the handful about a certain topic, And what I want to start doing is, in my next podcast episode, I find myself starting to talk to those people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know what you're saying, right?
Right? And I a little bit want to convince them, or not want to defend myself. And then I realize, hold on, my podcast is getting like over 100,000 downloads a month, which is amazing. And maybe 100 of them don't like what I have to say. Why am I talking to them? Why don't I talk to the other 99,000 that are
Yeah.
getting a lot out of it? That's who I want to be talking to. So I have to do that work on my brain.
Yeah. No, that's
But I'm
brilliant.
pretty good at it.
I think the kids call them haters these days,
The
right? Is that what,
haters,
right?
right?
Haters.
Yeah,
But that's, if you, we're human. And so,
totally.
we can, so I do a lot of work with trying to do mindfulness techniques, right? We got these core beliefs or values. And if the thought doesn't kind of jive with those, like it's just one of the many thoughts that go through our head, and let's move that one on through, right?
Yes.
Still can be hard
Totally.
though. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that though. The tools, you're actually helping me in this moment. Have you ever done much looking into the concept of ego in general? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people in my industry like to speak about the ego.
Okay.
So, I use different words sometimes to describe it, but just that idea that there's, maybe the natural man or the primitive brain or the part of us that, lives in fear and thinks everything is about us. And yeah, totally. I love
So I heard, and I think kind of what you make me think of with this is, I was at a training and they talked about that ego will have a pretty negative connotation often because we think of ego with regard to power and absolute power and corruption and pride and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But this person was saying, if the ego is based in wanting change and good and help, it was like, hey, Mother Teresa had an ego and Jesus had an ego and Buddha had an ego and Confucius had all these things where it's like, but it was to
the
change.
ego's not bad. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's the part where sometimes my negative self-talk will say, who do you think you are? That kind of thing.
Oh, right. Well, there's that kind of ego, like egotistical, whatever, thinking that you're better than everyone else, kind of more pride, which I think is how people think of that word.
Yeah.
I think of it more like that part of you that's ultimate job is to keep you alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we need that, right? Like there's danger here. Let's watch out for that. Let's be careful. So yeah, it's definitely not a negative thing. It just needs to be in check.
Yeah. Hey, so do you have some, so kind of going back through that, your progression. So you start doing some free coaching. Now you start getting some paying clients, the blog starting to pick up. What came next? Did you start doing more speaking? Did you do the podcast? What happened?
Yeah, that is basically, so I started to get more and more one-on-one clients. My business was growing. I was kind of figuring out the marketing and things. And then I decided to start a podcast. I had fallen in love with podcasts myself at that point, and I can talk all day long. Talking is a lot easier for me than writing.
Yeah.
So, there's some technology to figure out and all of that, but I just decided I'm going to stop blogging. I'm going to start a podcast as my content instead.
Okay.
So I started the podcast, and I had the people that had been following my blog, I think, started listening. So I had a few listeners in the beginning, but consistency was so key. Like I became pregnant at that point with my fourth child, and I have published a podcast every week, including the week I had a baby.
You did?
I always tell people it's totally doable.
Oh. Was it before or after the birth?
It was after. It was after.
Oh, wow.
And I always tell myself, well, I could batch record them, right? I could record a whole month at one day, but of course I never do that because I'm not very good at that. So I did. I was like, here, the baby's taking a nap. I'm going to sit down and talk to people for 20 minutes and publish it.
I love that.
Anyway, so yeah.
Hey, how hard is that though? Then when somebody is telling you, man, you don't get it. My life's hard or whatever. And you want to say, are you kidding me? I recorded a podcast, 2 days after I had a baby. I mean,
right.
Is that difficult at times? I mean, I know that your tools and skill set are such I know that's not your style, but how hard is that on the inside?
When I'm doing my job, I really keep myself out of it.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to do always as a coach is show people their own brains.
Okay.
So when they say to me, well, it's just so hard. I just don't have time. I have so much going on,
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, I know that's just a story they're telling themselves, but what my job is to show them that it is just a story. It's not a fact. They think it's a fact.
Right.
They're like, let me show you all the things I have to do. And so it doesn't bother me in that sense. I'm showing them that when you believe that story, here's what result you create in your life. And then I may bring in I have a few things on my plate, but this is the way I think about it. And people do say to me all the time, oh, you're just so busy. You must be so busy. They try to sell you that story.
Yeah.
They think it's kind and they're trying to be empathetic, which I totally appreciate, but I don't ever buy it. I say, no, I'm just so lucky.
Oh, I love that.
Such a full life. Like busy, I'm so busy is not a useful story ever. And it's always just a story.
I love it. So if you want, that maybe this will kind of help people who are, I want to obviously send people your way that are going to listen to this podcast because I love that message. How do you do that? How do you show someone that story? How do you lay that out?
So I have a coaching model I put it into where we take a look at, okay, your thought is I'm so busy. And then how does that make you feel? Because our thoughts are creating our feelings.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel overwhelmed, usually, right? That thought. And then your feelings are the fuel for your action. So when you feel overwhelmed, what do you do or not do? And it's so fascinating how the brain works. When we're overwhelmed, what we want to do is shut down.
Yeah, right.
Like I think I should just go watch Netflix for a while.
Yeah.
or maybe we start taking a little bit of action, but it's really painful. We're kind of in resistance as we do it because the brain doesn't like to be overwhelmed. And so we actually get less done when we believe that we're so busy. So I show them that. And okay, the result of that is your to-do list grows and you don't get to the things you want, which reinforces the original thought, I'm so busy. So I show them that and I help them really see that that's what you're creating for yourself. And then we'll move to what do you want to believe instead?
Okay.
So again, maybe we'll start with what do you want your action to look like or how do you want to feel or what result you want, but ultimately it has to come down to what story. It still has to be a believable story. I'm not really big on positive affirmations and just trying to convince yourself like I have plenty of time. Because if you don't believe that, your brain will just reject it and start looking for reasons to disprove it. But you find a thought like, for me, I'm just so lucky. I have such a full life. But you have to find a thought that is more empowering that's going to drive the action that you want. So it's that process that we go through in coaching.
Okay. Do you have, and I'm curious, do you have some kind of thoughts or stories or examples that come to mind of some pretty dramatic change that you've seen?
Yeah, I would say like where I love seeing progress. I've seen some people make some great progress in their marriages in terms of the way they're thinking about their spouse. One client in particular I'll share, she's a member of the LDS church, as a lot of my clients are, and her husband had left the church and decided he no longer believed it. And so she was struggling with what does our marriage look like now and just finding peace. And as I coached her through that whole process of what does she want to believe about her life, about her husband, about herself, about all of it, and it's a process, right? But ultimately, she recently sent me an email saying she's at so much peace to the extent she talked about going to visit, I think it was a relative who brought up this situation where her husband no longer is active in the church. And she said, normally I kind of avoid it and I want to be quiet. I don't want to talk about it. It's uncomfortable. And she's like, I didn't feel that at all. I was like, yeah, that's what he's chosen. And she's like, I just felt all this peace that I could be genuine and authentic and not have all this resentment.
Wow.
Like really amazing work she did there.
Yeah. So instead of her then shutting down and feeling trapped and stuck and all these other things.
Feeling like she has to defend or explain something. She just when you get to peace, it's like Byron Katie says, like, you don't have to love me. That's my job.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And when you get to that place of like, it's okay for people to misunderstand me. It's okay for people to have judgments. We all do at times. I just need to be there for me. I need to love me and my life and my situation. And then I can handle all the rest of it.
I love it. I think I'm hearing now that theme, because if we go back to you having confidence in your tools and the work you're doing, and it goes back to when we hear these negative thoughts or opinions of others, why do we let it affect us so much, right?
Yeah, I love helping. That's the other one that comes to my mind is just some women that I've seen their confidence go up so much.
Okay.
Because I remember as a new mom, I had this realization one day that people that are confident do well. I mean, they not only are they successful or whatever that means, but they also handle challenges better. And confidence is so useful, and not to mention fun.
Yeah.
And I remember asking around, like, now, what if my kids are lacking in confidence? How do we teach confidence? How do we build confidence? Obviously, it comes from like life experiences and right, and accomplishing something builds your confidence. But I'm like, what if I have kids that I want to help be more confident? And everybody I asked was like, I don't know. I'm not really sure how
Yeah.
you give people confidence. Maybe you're just born with it, kind of. Maybe some people have it and some people don't. And so I remember thinking, no, there has to be a way. And anyway, the coaching tools have really shown me how to help people build confidence, and especially as adults, right, where your brain isn't as neuroplastic, you're kind of, your personality is a little more set. They feel like, I'm just not a confident person. So
Yeah.
to be able to help people build confidence helps them in anything they do in life, and that I just love seeing that transformation.
I love how when you even said that, listen to that's the story they're telling themselves, right? How long have they been telling themselves that? Yeah.
Right.
Hey, you mentioned the word fun, and I want to kind of go with the, this is an interview. I mean, I love everything you share, but for people that are going to come here and learn more about you, because I know it's probably not.
Let's talk about me.
Exactly. Let's do it, right? So hobbies, what do you like to do?
Oh my gosh. Hobbies. I used to be an avid runner. I've run a couple of marathons, but now not as much. But I do still enjoy being active. And
hey, what marathons did you run?
I ran the St. George Marathon.
Okay.
And then I ran the San Diego Rock and Roll Marathon.
Beautiful.
You're like a triathloner, aren't you?
Okay, so actually, I'm not that strong a swimmer, but yeah, no, I've run a couple hundred marathons and ultra marathons. So I've done the St. George one. I had to get to 10 times so I could get the T-shirt that says I'm in the 10-year club.
10 times?
But it was funny. So yeah, I mean but that's a beautiful, beautiful run, right?
Oh yeah, gorgeous.
Yeah. So so you a little bit of running, you like that?
A little bit of activity that way, and the gym or whatnot at this point is my new running. Honestly, like I used to sew. Since I started my business, I think my creative need is really met through all my marketing and everything, so I haven't done any of that in a while.
Yeah.
But if I have time and my choice, I'm like, let's just go to a movie.
Yeah.
I just like hanging out with a group of people. I'm definitely an extrovert. I love to be around people, just engaging with a group of friends. My family and I will ski a little bit, things like that.
Can I do Tony's ADD moment for just a second?
Yeah,
here?
do it.
Hold on. When you said so, I just thought this was the coolest thing. Check this out. See this cube?
Oh my gosh.
Right? So I have just a wonderful younger girl client, and we were talking about things that, kind of to bring up her, I call it the emotional baseline, so that she can be in this better position to kind of respond to the things around her. And she mentioned sewing. And I just done a training where this guy was talking about when you're working with young boys, in particular teenage boys, they have this part of their brain that just wants to fidget and kick and whatever.
Oh.
And so he was talking about, man, if you were just playing catch in your office, that would kind of satisfy, I think it's part of like the limbic brain, and then they would in theory open up. But I kind of tried that, and not all kids are coordinated, so we're like knocking stuff over. So
the ball's like everywhere.
Exactly. So then she said, and ironically, she said, I love to sew cubes. So I thought, there it is, cube, right?
Oh,
so then she made me this cube, and so I've been throwing this bad boy around, and it's working. So
that is so cool. I love that.
Hey, you mentioned movies. I did a podcast on lying yesterday, and I actually found some research on the top 10 movies that people lie about that they've seen. So I thought that was
really?
Yeah. So
I can't wait to listen to that podcast.
Okay. The number one was The Godfather. So I don't know if you've ever said that.
I've not seen the whole thing. I've seen pieces of it. I won't lie.
No, okay, good. But what kind of movie? What do you like? Are you a rom-com? Are you a comedy? Are you a thriller? What do you like?
Oh, I think that my favorite is like a chick flick comedy, like Pitch Perfect, but they don't make them very often, and they're often a little bit crass for my taste.
Yeah.
But I'm like, can we get more of those and clean them up just a little? I do love comedy. I just think like laughing and let's just have fun. I mean, even in my business, that's how I try to think about it. When my brain's like, this is so scary. How are you going to do that? I'm like, stop.
Yeah.
This is just going to be fun.
Okay.
How am I going to make this fun?
Yeah,
So, I love anything where I'm sitting in a dark theater, especially if there's no little kids and I have a Diet Coke. I'm happy.
I was going to ask, are you a popcorn or no popcorn?
I used to eat popcorn, but I've really kind of cleaned up my diet lately. So.
Okay, I feel judged because of my diet.
There's no judgment whatsoever. I was a popcorn girl for many years.
Oh, I love it. I do. No, I love that, the kind of the movie. What's your favorite date night with your husband?
I would say like Honestly, dinner with a small group of friends. I
Okay.
just love to connect with other adults. It's so rare when you have little kids that you get to do that without kids interrupting every minute. So just to go out with a small group and just hang out and visit is like my ideal. And
Okay.
my husband, of course.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. Hey, tell me about, so I pulled some stuff off of your website, and one of those is this, it's Ask Jody Anything. Tell me
Yeah.
how that started and what's that about?
Yeah, well, that's anybody listening who wants to come is welcome to go there. The podcast has just grown so tremendously, and I'm so thrilled with how people are responding to it. But I get inundated with questions about, I love what you taught on there. I have this situation. What would you advise? And I used to try to answer those, and I realized eventually I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I have that call. I do it about once a month. It's free, open to the public, and people come and they pop their question into the chat box, so it's anonymous
Okay.
to anyone other than me. I can see their name if they typed in their name, but it's a kind of safe environment for them. I get through as many questions as I can, and I just answer them right there live on the call. So I feel like it's so good because 10 people have the same question,
Yeah.
so I can answer it once. But also to hear other people, sometimes like other people ask the questions that we don't even think to ask.
Sure.
So it's just a really fun way for me to give a little bit extra on top of the podcast that's doable for me in my schedule.
Do you have like a number one question you get asked, or you get asked?
I would say it's a lot of, again, marriage type stuff, marriage questions, but also because I do, the word mom is in the title of my podcast.
Yeah.
A lot of women are coming to me saying, can you give me advice on how to teach this to my child?
Oh.
And I never do that, actually. I always coach the mom. It's like the manager saying, what do I do with this employee?
Okay.
And so rather than say, do this with your employer or try this with your child, I'll give them a little bit of some of that. But mostly I'm like, they'll say, this is just so heartbreaking. My child is full of self-loathing, and I'm trying to teach her what you teach about confidence, but she's just not getting it. How do I help my child? And I always begin with, let's talk about why it's so heartbreaking. It's fine for you to feel sad for your child. I'm not trying to take that away, but is it really serving you to be so emotionally upset? How are you going to show up for your child? So I always coach the mom.
I love it.
Like, that's not what I meant. But,
yeah. Well, you had a podcast not long ago, and I
just did a podcast on that.
And I really liked where you were talking about, sometimes it's just about, it's you feel uncomfortable with the situation. That was nice.
For sure.
Yeah. Do you ever get some questions that are just kind of ridiculous?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Any come to mind?
Usually I just don't read them.
Okay.
I don't read them off because people can't see where they're coming in, and I never get to all of them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Let me think. What are some ridiculous ones?
I guess I feel bad because now somebody's going to say, wait a minute, I was going to ask that question. Apparently that one's ridiculous.
No, I love them. Honestly, I'm really good at, when I'm coaching, getting in the headspace of neutrality. It doesn't matter what people bring at me. I'm ready. I'm neutral. I'm looking for what's happening in your brain. Is honestly what I'm looking for. So when I'm not coaching, I'm back to my human self that has judgment and all that, as much as I try not to. But in the coaching space, I'm generally looking for what's driving that problem for them. So on one of my coaching calls in my group program once, my sister helps me in my business a little. She's also a coach. And so she happened to be on the call, and the woman presented with, my next door neighbor murdered his wife.
Whoa.
And that was the first thing she said. And I was just listening for, okay. And she says, then there's these children now that are left without a mother that I've been watching. And the whole thing she wanted coaching on was, I feel like I should adopt these children, but I don't really want to. And I don't know how to make this decision. And so that's what I coached her on, right? Was what was going on with the children making this decision. Well, after the call, my sister was like, I love how you're so in that space that somebody tells you their next door neighbor murdered their wife and you don't even react.
Right.
You're
Okay.
Hey, tell me what else. And I really do just turn on this part of my brain that's listening for what is her problem. It's not what she thinks it is, right?
Yeah. I love that. So I have this cheesy phrase where I talk about, I want people to, the more open and honest they can be, obviously the better work we can do. And people are still hesitant to kind of really open up. And I always say I have this little thing on my shoulder that's the, oh my gosh, meter. And I promise you, it doesn't even really move. Like, this is good. I want all the information. But I have always wondered before, I have this thought of, someday I'm going to get the, hey, I'm a serial killer, and because we have confidentiality, but it's like, if it's in the past, then what do I do with that? And if they're not telling me to do it again, and so I haven't had that yet, though. So you've come closer to that than I have. Yeah.
Oh no. I mean, it was her neighbor. If somebody said that to me, I would be like, you need to call Tony. I'm not a therapist.
Right. Yeah.
So I just sent all of those people to you.
Yeah. And that part, my oh my gosh meter actually might go up a little bit.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, yes, of course I'm still human. I'm just like listening for certain things, right? So
hey, I have to. Oh, have you ever had have you been doing that call for a long time? I mean, do you ever have times where there aren't that flow of questions?
Oh no, it's always packed. I've probably been doing it maybe 6 months, not too long.
Okay. Can I, that's my way to wedge a personal anecdote into your,
Let's do it.
I just, when you're saying that, I will go, speak at a lot of the firesides, things like that. And every now and again it will be, people will say, hey, we're going to collect questions for you. And I was at one once, and I got all these 3x5 cards, and honestly, there were a couple of statements. Many of them were blank. There was one about, oh, your head's shiny. And so I was like, oh, here's a good question. This person wants to know. And I was kind of making them up. Yeah.
I was going to say, you just make them up.
Yeah. And so I felt bad. But yes.
When I first started doing webinars, I had that. I would be prepared with some questions in case nobody asked them.
Yeah.
It happened. That's how it just happens, I think.
Right. Okay. Exactly. So. Okay. So this call, their next one is Thursday, March 22nd. Right?
Yep.
Right. Okay. 9 a.m. Pacific. And then what else? What other services do you offer? I mean, we were talking a little bit off the air of the one-on-one. Is that,
I don't do one-on-one coaching anymore because I got to a point where I had so much demand that I was going to have to just start charging a lot more or working all night. And I didn't want to do either. And so I find that the group coaching is actually, honestly, in many cases, even more powerful for people because hearing other people, hearing their situation, you're not in the midst of it. So you're not as emotionally attached to it, right?
Yeah.
So you can still get the learning of the tool and see the real life application. But sometimes it's easier to apply when to your situation when you learn it through somebody else's experience. So sure. I think the group coaching is just such a win for me and for my clients. It's less money for them to pay me. It's allows me to serve more people. So anyway, everything I do right now is in groups, but I should say so I have basically an online program similar to the way you pay a monthly service at the gym.
Okay.
My clients pay me a monthly fee to come where I teach a class. We do live coaching calls. They have access to me online. They have access to a bunch of classes and tools I've created. So they pay that monthly fee to come in there and be in those calls and continue to learn and continue to get help. And so they come and stay as little or as long as they want to, basically.
Okay.
Which has been phenomenal for people. And then, so within that program, we do offer some more individualized or really small group help to members who are in there who say, I just really am going through this crisis right now. I really need a little more one-on-one. So I have coaches that work with me in there that will do some of that.
Okay.
But everything otherwise is through that program. And then I do some in-person events too. I'm doing a live 4-day retreat.
Oh, wow.
In March. That will
Where's that?
That'll be here in Spokane, Washington.
Okay.
So there's just a few seats left in that right now, but there are a few, and that's going to be. I love working with. If I could work with people in person every day, I would, but obviously I can't get to everyone that way. So I love doing the live events where I just kind of teach everything at once, and we do really in-depth coaching, and I try to give them all of my tools and make it a really inclusive experience.
So is that where you're training back in the corporate world? Does that help when you're organizing a big event like that? That brings me some anxiety to think about that. Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, no. I am a good teacher. I mean, I got my master's degree in adult education and training, and I have a lot of experience doing that, and I enjoy it. I'm good at it. So yeah, and when I first started working with moms, which I'm starting to work with a lot of other people now as well. But when I first started working with moms, I was like, we put on these great corporate retreats and people leave on fire. They're motivated. They feel supported. They have new tools. You know who needs that? Stay-at-home moms.
Yeah,
and who doesn't get that? Stay-at-home moms.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to do that for the moms.
Yeah.
So I only do it once a year or so, but I try to create like an amazing, inspiring experience.
And I think because I love the speaking part. I think what I was even thinking about is I can't imagine the organization. I mean, is that one of your strong suits of how we plan out all 4 days?
No, I'm not good at that at all. But I keep it simple. I do. I keep it simple. We don't do elaborate decor or meals even. It's like you're going to come and then you're going to go to lunch wherever you want. So I keep it really simple.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't love the organization either.
Okay. All right. No, that it makes me feel better. Right. And we've already hit on the lunch thing. So that sounds like that was.
Then I don't have to take complaints about lunch. They just go wherever they want.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. So a couple of seats there and people just go to your website, right? Bold.
Yeah. They go to my website. You'll see it's called Be Bold Boot Camp. There's a link right on the top to learn about that. I do have some men coming this time and nice. I'm excited. It's going to be a great event. The Ask Jody call, they can just go to my website, click on work with me, or you can even go to boldnewmom.com/ask Jody. And I think it takes you right there to sign up for it.
Okay. I'll have notes and all that stuff. I'll put that with my podcast as well. So when you talk about men, it does make me think, do you have expansions? Is there going to be a bold new dad? Are you hoping to do this until you're a bold new grandma? I mean, what's the long term thing?
I want to take the word mom out of everything because we are expanding, but also even as a mom myself, like I love being a mom. I love my children, but I don't always identify with that title.
Sure.
It's like you go to the pediatrician and they say, okay, mom, you're ready. And I want to be like, but I have a name anyway.
Yeah.
So I want to get that word out of there for a lot of reasons. I'm still going to keep focusing like I have, but we are starting to expand a little bit. I don't know what it will look like ultimately, but I do have visions of like, I think I work with a lot of members of the Mormon Church. Mm-hmm. I would love to see a pre-marriage class for engaged couples. I feel like every other church has that. I don't know why ours doesn't.
There's a huge need for that. There really is.
Yeah, I think there's a great opportunity to work with some of our youth. I think there's opportunity to help the men in some way with whatever they're wanting. I think also to help return missionaries or before you go out on a mission. All of these tools I think are so useful in all those scenarios. So we don't have those programs at this point, but that is my long-term vision, is to create programs for all of that. So
that's wonderful. That is.
Got a lot to do.
Yeah, no, that's great. And your whole attitude is what a blessing to have this opportunity, right? For
sure. I am like pinch myself every day that I get to do this. It's fantastic. Nice. Yeah.
Hey, I've taken 50 minutes of your time. I really appreciate you taking the time, Jody. I really do. Yeah. This was a blast. It really was.
Oh, I'm so happy to do it, and would love to have you come on my podcast too.
I've been trying not to beg for that, but I would love to.
I would love to have you come on. So I want to go listen to a couple more of yours just so that I can be picky about, I love this topic.
Okay.
So you have a topic you're passionate about too. But I'll reach out to you and with a couple time.
Okay. That'd be great. I would love to anytime. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. I'm going to hit stop on the recording, but if you can hang on 1 second. But
sure. Yeah.
Jody, thank you so much for taking the time and being here on the virtual couch.
Thank you for having me.
All right.